how's it going? Welcome back to another awesome episode of On the Throttle with Jackie Van Ham and my buddy Josh, bringing you all the newest news going on out here in motorcycling and powersports. Welcome to this special edition of the two of us side by side in person together.
It's crazy.
I know, it's super crazy. Welcome back to another great show. Today's episode, I'm going to be talking about just some blatant speculation and rumors going on out here in motorcycling. Josh, what are you talking about today?
One of mine might be a little speculation and some rumors, but there's photos. There's photos, so there's something to it. The other one is there is consolidation by broadening, which I can explain how that happens. Like normal, it's bad jokes.
Very curious, and we're all going to have to wait and see what Josh has going on after this word from our sponsor. There are still billions of dollars available for businesses through the Employee Retention Credit Federal Tax Credit Program. Stenson Tamaddon has helped companies with less than 500 employees retrieve over $3.4 billion in tax credits through employee retention credits. Call Stenson Tamaddon today at 866-934-8461 today to start your application. That's 866-934-8461 to apply. Call now. Folks, a call thanks to our sponsor, Stenson Tamaddon. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. Welcome back to another great episode. If you are a regular watcher of the show, you know how odd this is. Usually we're traveling all over the place in the same room at the same time.
It's weird.
Super
it's
weird,
weird,
right? I agree. It's super strange. But we're gonna pull it together. We're gonna muddle on through here together and do another awesome episode. If you are new to the program, welcome. Welcome to the show, everybody. You can find all of our previous episodes out there on the YouTube and Facebook channels. Now, for today's very first story, again, as I mentioned at the very top of the program, I have just got flat out gossip and rumors and innuendo for my stories for today, and a little bit of some spy photos thrown in just for good measure. My first story that we're going to talk about is going to be coming from the folks over at Royal Enfield, whose name, obviously, Josh, I cannot get out of my mouth this month because I've been talking about them the past... Constantly. The past two episodes, at least, we've been talking about Royal Enfield. They had an amazing presence at EICMA, the great big huge trade show that I just got back from over in beautiful Milan, Italy. I talked about what they have going on. I talked about some of their new bikes. And then I come home and it's more news from Royal Enfield. And this is going to be just flat out speculation and innuendo. However, it was brought to us by the eyeballs at Autocar India. Autocar India is a very, very large journalism publication over in India. So they always seem to have the scoop on what's going on with Royal Enfield in particular. No surprise there. Royal Enfield, of course, being an India-based company. This photo on your screen, this image on your screen, was again released by the folks over at Autocar India. And it is going to be about this new electric Royal Enfield. You can see from this photo, not a ton of detail, but if we dive into this picture a little bit more, you can see that there is a name on it. It does seem to be heading towards some sort of prototype concept and beyond type phases. This is going to be the early stages of development, potentially. This big, huge front end going on with this bike, definitely referencing some earlier motorcycle design and style. This girder with that girder front fork, very early bike, very antique bike styling. But you can see from the front end, the little bit that is shown, that's going to be a battery tucked in there, gang. This is going to be an EV machine. Now, is it going to be totally true to this design image? I'm not 110% sure. Nobody really knows, but the folks at Royal Enfield definitely are not afraid to dabble in the antique motorcycle meets new motorcycle spaces. They do it super well. They do it great. They've got great classic design going on. So we are all going to have to wait and see what is happening over at Royal Enfield as far as EV. And then just earlier today, beep, 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 breaking news, gang. The folks at Royal Enfield have also, there's been some spy photos and spy images that just popped up on the internet today. And it is an electric Himalayan. That's right. They're a dual sport adventure. They're a little guy. They're a little 400cc bike. Sells like hotcakes. Very, very cool little machine. The word on the street from a very credible source is the fact that it is going to be one of the very first models that Royal Enfield is going to go electric with. I'll have more images and news as soon as that all breaks, but I just wanted to go ahead and bring that up while we were talking about all things Royal Enfield and all things e-bike. Josh, what do you think about this tiny little glimpse of potential e-bike future coming from Royal Enfield?
To me, I really do like it, because when I look at the fork and stuff like that on it, the fork is classic design, but I can also see this as an inexpensive design to make. In the same type of that, I'm wondering if, from looking at that arched piece that goes up by the headstock there, I'm wondering if this is a bolt-together frame also. So that, there's a couple of clues and stuff like that to me that say, okay, yes, obviously electric, this is going to be a very cool-looking bike, but are they going for that still entry-level market, commuter market, that base level, around-town motorcycle? That's, to me, kind of what this nods towards. And I think it's a good move.
I think it can nod toward that. I mean, we can always agree that Royal Enfield will always be a budget proposition.
Oh, for sure.
You know, they're in their wheelhouse, pun intended. They're in their sweet spot. They make.
That was.
Puns
are my job.
I delivered the first dad joke today. Who knew? Who knew? Maybe it's just by osmosis, by sitting next to each other.
Yeah.
So, you know, they're always going to be that, again, that bargain proposition. They're always going to be a good bang for the buck. But that being said, that girder fork, those are not cheap to make, even if they're just kind of replica. Like that speaks to a little bit more detail than I would expect.
It'll be interesting.
Off of a total bargain bike. So we're all going to have to wait and see. I am super curious. I do love the very tidy front end. Again, I keep mentioning it, but it's literally, that's all that's living on the internet now is just this front end photo. So I do love that girder. I love that tidy little mini fender going on up there. I think the headlight bucket is really sharp. I like that big swoopy design going on from that wraps up and around the tank, as it were, which would more likely be storage for this electric Royal Enfield potential bike that might be coming. So again, my first story for
Possibly,
today.
maybe, potentially.
Possibly, maybe, potentially, outright speculation, outright rumor mill, you know, mongering. I'm doing all the things, and today I'm just bringing it up. I'm just putting it out there into the universe. Speaking of things out there in the universe, what's going on for your first story today, Josh?
So for me, there is PIERER Mobility. You may know them as the parent company of KTM. They have announced that they're going to take over distribution for CFMoto in Europe. And the interesting thing that I see about that is a lot of the growth with this PIERER Mobility with this. So January 1st is when this is scheduled to happen. They will be using 11 models in 5 countries: Austria, Germany, Spain, Switzerland, and the UK. Now, the 11 models that they are going with, those are all going to be just the two-wheeled motorcycle models. The CFMoto also has a number of side-by-sides and a number of ATV models also. Those are not going to be included in this distribution. They have, what's interesting about this is CF and KTM have a 10-year-long relationship. So CF has taken care of a lot of the manufacturing and the sales that KTM has done in China. Now, one of the big things with this is the bike that's on your screen right now is the 650 Adventura. That is a $6,799 motorcycle adventure bike, which when you look at something that's in a 650cc, it's going to be in that price range. You're tough to really touch anything else. So they've got a great value proposition. The big excitement, too, is later on coming out in the next year. They've already revealed it, is the 800 Adventura. So CFMoto has been in Europe for some time, and you may remember a similar story about a company that's been in the US for some time, which is MV Agusta. KTM, or PIERER Mobility, has taken over the distribution for MV in the US. Now they're doing CF in Europe. So the kind of thing that came to my mind with this was infrastructure, dealership infrastructure. We all know is very expensive. So why build it yourself when someone else can build it for you? So that is CFMoto's part of this. The other side of this is infrastructure is expensive. So why pay for it by yourself if you can get someone else to help you pay for it? And to me, that is kind of this symbiotic relationship, because although obviously KTM is a big adventure and dirt company, this is not a competing bike for them. When you look at price range, when you look at features, when you look at gizmos, it's not a competing bike. So to me, that is the big benefit and bonus for it. What are your thoughts, Jacqui? Is this a good marriage? Is this a good team like us, or is this a good team like us on a bad day?
I think it's a really interesting move. The folks over at PIERER Mobility, the parent company of KTM, Husqvarna, now a big chunk of MV Agusta, and a handful of other mobility-based businesses, are clearly making big strides out here, snapping up all sorts of intellectual properties, getting into all sorts of new markets. The CFMoto play isn't totally shocking to me, I have to admit, because CFMoto already, I believe, fabricates or manufactures some of their bikes.
Yes.
Aren't I correct in that?
A lot of the parts.
The smaller.
Yep.
Yeah. So the CFMoto, we talk about Asia-based companies here a decent amount because I think that they're really fascinating. But let's not forget that companies like CFMoto and a handful of other companies that are based out of Asia are responsible for many of these larger brands, especially their smaller displacement machines, for multiple reasons. One, it's at a better price point. Smaller bikes in this country in particular, in this market in particular, need to sell for less money. How do you make something cost less? You end up having it made overseas in Asia market. That also keeps the taxes low or non-existent for them to then in turn sell that smaller displacement machine in Asia market, because a lot of Asia market and European market for that matter are looking into smaller displacement machines because it has less cost to the consumer as far as insurances go. It is much easier to also get that license to operate those machines. So these folks know what they're doing. They've been around a long time. They already have lots of partnerships with lots of bigger companies. So why not go ahead and just climb into bed all the way with one of the companies they already do business with anyway, and just go ahead and bring their bikes over to Asia market just like they take their bikes into, or take their bikes into European market just like they take their bikes into Asia market. So not a huge surprise in my mind.
No.
But interesting news for sure. And again, they're clearly making just some big strides out here, just putting down all sorts of roots in all sorts of places with lots of different brands.
It's to me it's turning into that empire. It is kind of what they're doing. When you look at like the MV Agusta, Husqvarna, Gas, they are building an empire, European empire, and it's going to be interesting to see how it turns out. I see good things for them, though.
Yeah, it is interesting to see. And also that influx of cash coming from either KTM or the other way around always helps, right? It always makes everything go a little
extra couple of bucks makes it easier.
Everything go a little bit smoother. Now, for my second story for today, I'm still hard and fast over here on the flat out innuendo, gossip, and rumor mongering over here, because my second story for today is talking about BMW. My friends at BMW, all signs indicate that BMW will bring a mid-sized 1200cc cruiser to market. Or will they? Because there's several different opinions on this.
We needed the evil laugh in there.
Will they? Because there's been several different rumors floating around about this trademark name from the folks at BMW, the R12 name. It has been floating around for a handful of years now. People have not been really sure exactly what to make of it because the R in BMW speak refers to their boxer engine bikes. The number following it usually refers to the displacement. That is a very traditional way for BMW to name their machines. So an R12 would kind of logically say that it's a boxer engined 1200cc bike. But as far as the rest of their boxer lineup, they're already at 1250 cc's. So what could it be? The machine that was just released the last handful of years, the R18, kind of goes along that same trend. The R18 is a boxer engine huge cruiser that is an 1800 cc.
For pistons.
Huge paint cans for pistons, exactly. Two 900cc pistons slogging it out in there back and forth. So the R12 then kind of logically, you could make the jump that it could be a slightly smaller 1200cc boxer engine cruiser bike. But don't hold fast. Hold on, gang, because there's a whole nother twist to this story, because there is a handful of folks that believe what this R12 really is an extension off of the R9T. The very cool,
that would make sense,
retro styled, it's part of their heritage lineup. There is a bit of a belief that that is going to be an extension off of that bike lineup, not off of this R18 very classic cruiser lineup. So let's go to some images now, because I wanted to go ahead, and while I'm just talking flat out gossip and rumor mongering, so this is the lineup of R9T as it exists today. So if you're not familiar with these bikes, great, slightly smaller platform, but still plenty of power. They're in the 1100cc range right now. So plenty of power, great heritage retro style bike. Next slide. So my thought is, so here, Josh, now let's check it out. So the R9T was kind of loosely named-ish off of a handful of ideas. One was the 90-year anniversary of BMW. The second referencing the first kind of super bike that was launched by BMW in the 1970s, which is the R90S, which is at the top right-hand side of your screen in beautiful and iconic Daytona orange. In case you're wondering,
love the color.
In case you're wondering, I am a BMW nerd. So the bike underneath it was styled by folks a handful of years ago based off of the R9T. I know the names are very, very similar. It gets a little confusing, but it is a tribute bike to the bike that is right next door to it up in the upper right-hand corner. So is that what's coming? Is that what this next R12 is going to be? Because here's where it gets even more plot twist. The R12 and R12S were also trademarked recently, it was revealed. So what is an R12S going to be? S in BMW speak usually refers to a partially or fully faired, which is the fairing on the front of this bike. It usually refers to that. S designates in BMW speak sport, not surprising. Right. So usually they kind of lean towards a little bit more of a sport bike. So what if the R12S actually was like this bike, where it was referencing some earlier super bikes, still heritage, still iconic, but with a little fairing on it? Or, plot twist, let's see that next slide, what if it was more like this? A huge R1800cc cruiser, but with a fairing on it, and closer to 1200 cc's, still in this iconic Daytona orange. Lots of gossip, lots of rumors, lots of ideas. What do you think, Josh? What is it going to be?
To me, it's so difficult to even. I mean, when you said there's speculation in this, I'm throwing a dart at a dartboard here. I am not putting any money up there either by any stretch of the imagination either. To me, I could see both. I mean, I think both of them are very, very viable in that, and that's, to me, both of them are kind of, I don't want to say holes in BMW's line, but there's a gap there. I still love the old Boxer Cups. It was the R1150R, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
They haven't had that for a while. And those bikes are starting to make a comeback when you look at stuff like the Triumph and others like that, that are those half-faired bikes that are just meant to look a little retro, but not really retro, but so
sport retro.
Right, so it can fit anywhere in there. And I mean, I think both of them are great possibilities. The R18 has been a pretty big success for BMW, so for them to say, hey, look, if someone wants something just a little bit smaller, let's go ahead and give them that too. So start out with it's kind of, cruisers I know run kind of backwards from most other bikes, where you build the big one to make people be like, oh, this is the lust factor for it.
Yeah.
And then you throw in the small one like, hey, if you want to get in for $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 less money, you can do that here, because we want you with a BMW bike. So both of them, I think, are great. I'm curious to see what one comes out of the wash, because obviously if they took the time to trademark these names, they're going to do something. Yeah,
I'm very curious all the way around. I'd be excited, honestly, about either version. But here's yet another plot twist going on, is that this year is the 100-year anniversary of BMW Motorcycle, BMW Motorrad.
Wow.
So it really makes me think and feel and project and look in my crystal ball and make up stories, because what better time to come out with like cool, iconic heritage tribute bikes, right? This is the perfect year to do it. If you were going to release something like that, R90S is such iconic BMW bike. If there is not one launched, I will fall out of this chair. I will just be super, super shocked. if that isn't the case going forward. I do not have any information. I totally am just making it up. I don't have any super secret squirrel, behind the scenes info. This is all, again, this show's just dedicated to just rumors, ideas, suggestions, things I'd like to see.
Things we'd like to see.
Things I'd be excited about. But either way, I'm really excited, and this has been going on for a handful of years now, so I am definitely thinking that there is something coming in 2023. But the minute we find out, we're going to be bringing it to you here on the program. So make sure you hit that notifications on, because you are not going to want to miss it. Now, what's your second story for today, Josh?
So my second story comes down to, once again, a little bit of speculation, but I have photos for mine, which you guys all know that I enjoy the earth mover category, is what I like to call the big adventure bikes, because they aren't really useful except for moving large quantities of earth. Earlier this week, we saw photos on the moto.it site of this very motorcycle that you see on your screen right here. All the KTM gear on there made you lead to believe that, this is probably a KTM. The fact that when you take a really hard look at it, you can see the rear swing arm on this and the rear rack both match the previous version, or the current version, I guess I would say, KTM 1290 Super Adventure. So when you look at some of the things like that, I see a lot of really good things. When I look at something else, I am seeing some changes. If we go to, I believe, the next slide, we can see a little bit more of we'll see the front here, which obviously from KTM's setup, when you see the headlight there, it looks like a train headlight off in the distance down a tunnel, instead of their current praying mantis setup, which happens to be able to light up an entire city block. Yeah. The big thing that I see with this that looks very different, and a couple of us have pointed this out already, when you look at that, there is that square directly beneath the headlight.
Yes.
Most of these big adventure bikes are starting to come with some form of adaptive cruise control. So, is KTM changing the bike so they can do that? We're pretty sure the answer is probably going to be yes, especially with the amount of tech KTM puts in their bikes currently. If we hit the next one, that one you will see, I noticed, and this took about 25 minutes of me just staring at these photos, right behind the rider's right foot, the frame rail, the direction that goes is at a very different angle from the current one. So that to me says there's probably some different frame geometry, even though there's some current parts carryover. Now this obviously is just a spy shot. So there's going to be some parts that are going to be carried over, that are going to be changed, a whole bunch of other stuff. But it's very interesting to see that there is this many changes, especially into the bodywork. Now, the other big thing about this is I'm starting to do some math. And as I do this math, there is a spy shot of this bike that just happens to head out in November of 2022. Now, oddly enough, the BMW GS 1300 is set to be released and unveiled fall of 2023. Coincidence? According to my math, I do not think so. KTM loves just sitting there and firing across the bow of BMW and saying, hey, you guys build this, we're going to do this, and we're going to see who comes out in the wash. Obviously, both of them have amazing followings. Both of them have great bikes. I am excited to see this in the flesh when it comes out. What are your thoughts? What do you think it looks like?
Oh, I agree with you, and I love some of the things that you pointed out. I totally agree, by the way, about the adaptive cruise. That is just, to me, a dead giveaway when they have that little box on the front end. You know, there's a radar that's going to be living there. Let's quit fooling each other here. So I'm really curious to see what happens, because that is an awful lot of tech to go into an adventure bike. But not surprising. You know, there's two different camps happening right now. One is like super ultra premium adventure bike with all the stuff, and the other is like a little bit of kind of an entry level, lesser expensive midsize. And I'm here for both of them. I think they're both interesting.
both of them.
I appreciate you going ahead and bringing your second story to us today, Josh, and jumping right on into the rumor mill.
Oh, why not?
You dipped a toe in. The water is fine in here. We both are just running the Gossip Girls around the block. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. I hope you enjoyed today's show. We had a load of fun, and actually,
Always.
and together in person in one place. So it was a very special episode. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. As always, we will see you next week out here on the program. Thanks for tuning in, clicking, liking, and sharing all of our videos, and we will see you next week.